Welcome back. How are you today? I hope you're well. Uh, so, I have been working on my voice assistant, and uh, I went down a kind of a rat hole. I installed Julius and got it working, and then I was going to use that as my wake word engine. The problem is that speech recognition is the module I've been using, and the speech recognition module, let me pull this up here. This speech recognition module works with Sphinx, Google, Wit AI, Microsoft Bing Voice, etc., but it does not work with Julius. And so what I was going to do is I was going to run Julius and pipe the output to my auto3.py program, which in turn would would use Google in the cloud to do speech recognition. And the more I thought about this, the worse it sounded. It's just not very efficient. There are too many possibilities for problems. It's not something that I can describe to someone else easily in terms of how are you going to get this working, how are you going to install it, blah, blah, blah. But it does entail installing Pocketsphinx, which is no easy task. But there's a very good article out here on bangladroid.wordpress.com, and let me copy this, Earl. I'll stick this in the notes if I remember. Let me see, let me at least do this much. Split horizontally. I always feel like I'm brain dead. I don't know. It gets worse every day. All right. So here's the URL for it. Anyway, it's bangladroid.wordpress.com 2017-02-16 installing CMU Sphinx on Ubuntu, and Ubuntu is what I'm running. This article, I think, is how to install it on an older version, Ubuntu 14.04. I'm on 18.04. But this pretty much works perfectly, with one exception, which I'm going to tell you about in a minute. So if we come over here, this is not this, installing dependencies. This is where we get started. And this is very simple. You scroll down here, you just cut this command out and paste it in your terminal. I'm not going to do it, I've already done all this. And it will install all these dependencies. In my case, they were all installed already and were the latest version, so nothing had to be done. Oh, I'm forgetting something here. Let me move this over here. All right, so this a little bigger. I always forget that there's a window over here, even though it's shut today. I'm looking up at my webcam and I see that the little latch is over it. It's still going to show up as a little black thing here. I suppose I could turn that off if I'm not using it. I think it's this one here. All right, so that's gone at least. It's not going to be, hopefully it doesn't mess up the recording. I've never deleted that before while running. Anyway, you run this command here and it installs all the dependencies. And then you need to install Sphinx Base. And so I CD'd into my desktop folder. I didn't really want to install it there. I don't use the desktop folder. I don't have an active desktop. But when you follow these kinds of instructions, if you can follow them to the letter, it's almost always better. So I CD'd into there, and I made this Sphinx source directory, make dir Sphinx source. I CD'd into that, and then this is just showing you his prompt here. There's no command here at all. So your prompt will probably say the same thing. It'll probably say tilde desktop Sphinx source $, or something like that. My prompt, if I pull this back up, let's see, I can CD to the desktop here, Sphinx source. What happened here? No such file or directory. Oh, I see what's going on here. I have to be home first to do that. There we go. So here's what my prompt looks like. I've got a big old prompt. It's this whole, it's a multi-line prompt. It's 4 lines. But look, it's got the home desktop Sphinx source in there. So don't let that confuse you. I know I'm rambling on about this, but these kinds of things can be confusing to people, especially if they haven't done a lot of software building before. And then from within that desktop Sphinx dash source directory, he does a git clone of this URL, https:// etc. And this clones everything into the Sphinx base directory. So now we have desktop, Sphinx source, Sphinx base is where it's all going. And you should see something like this. Now on my system it doesn't say checking connectivity done when it's done. It does say, I think, resolving deltas. So depending on the version of Ubuntu, you may see something a little different. And then he just does an LA of Sphinx base. He's just listing. LA is list all. So it's going to show any hidden files of the Sphinx base directory. And this is what you should see. You should see makefile.am, a readme, blah, blah, blah. The important thing here is autogen.sh. And notice there's nothing in here called makefile. That's what we're going to create here. So from within this Sphinx base directory, you see here, he CDs into Sphinx base. And then from within there, he runs ./autogen.sh. Dot is the current directory. So after he's CDs into Sphinx base, then Sphinx base is the current directory. So he's saying find this shell script in the current directory and run it. That's what this does. So you copy this, paste that into your terminal and run it. And you should get this message back, warning, I'm going to run configure with no arguments, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. And then it'll do a bunch of processing. You'll see a line scroll by, blah, 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 dot, 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 it says here. More lines scroll by. And the very last thing should say, now type make to compile the package. And unless you see errors up in here, you're fine. And errors usually are printed in red. If you have other colors, it's usually warnings, and they don't matter so much. Usually you can get away with those. Not always, but usually. And it says, before we charge right ahead to compilation with the make command, let's look at what we have here. So if we do another LA in that directory, that's the list all, you're going to see that we now have some new files in here. Most importantly, we have a make file. And that's what we're going to run next. So this talks about what the make utility is, etc. So there's some good information in here. And so the next thing to do, we're in this Sphinx-based directory. We're going to type make, and all this stuff is going to happen here. And then the last step for this, sort of the last step, is do a sudo make install. Here it is, sudo make install. So you need root privileges here to actually install this now that we've built it. So we build it, and then we install it. Actually, we configure it. That's the first command all the way up there. When we ran that shell script, we were configuring it. Then we make it. Then we install it. And so you should see stuff like this. Lots more lines. Scroll by. And we should see stuff like this, and then lots more lines. Scroll by. And at the end, it says leaving directory. And you should have successfully installed Sphinx Base. All right, so now, if you go to your terminal and you type Sphinx _ and you hit the tab, it's supposed to show you all these files, but it's probably not going to show them to you. At least I found that to be the case. This didn't work for me at this point. However, if I cd into user local bin and then do an ls, I see all of these in there. So I think the problem here I was able to fix by closing my terminal and then reopening it. And suddenly I was able to do this. I was able to type Sphinx _ and hit the tab, and then I saw all of these programs. And that's good. Once that happens, you can run one of them. You can run this Sphinx _lm _convert, and you should get some kind of an error message. And the reason that we get this is because there is a LD path variable that we have not set. So we can do this. We can do this export LD under library path blah blah blah, and then we can run that command and we won't get that error. However, this is not the best way to do this, right? Because once you leave this session, if you open a terminal again, you're not going to see this LD library path. You'll have to do it again. So you could go into one of your like .profile and put it in there, but that's not the best way to do it. The way to do this is to edit the etc ld.so.conf file. And the way to do that is well, here it says first let's take a look at it. Let's just cat the file out. And probably we'll come back with just this one line, include etc ld.so.conf.d star.conf. So those are where all the linked libraries are. So it recommends here that we do a sudo nano /etc /ld.so.conf. I don't like nano. I usually use vim. I do a sudo vim /etc /ld.so.conf. You use whatever editor you feel comfortable with, but go in and edit this file and just add user local lib to it, and then save it. And once you've saved it, you run this command, sudo ldconfig, and that makes sure that your computer is able to find all of those shared libraries. And now when you do ldconfig -p, grep for local, and then I piped again and grepped for Sphinx, it came back with all these guys here. And now I was able to run this Sphinx under lm under convert command, and it worked fine. Now remember this ld, where is it, sudo ldconfig command, because we're going to need to run this again later, and this guy forgot to put it in the article. This is a very good article. It's so difficult to remember everything when you're writing one of these articles. Almost always there's some errors in them. So I don't blame this guy. I praise him for writing such a good article. But that was a mistake. All right, so once we have Sphinx base installed here, now we want to install Pocketsphinx. And we're going to do the same kind of thing. We're going to go back into Sphinx source, cd tilde desktop / Sphinx source. We're going to be there. We're going to do a git clone of this URL. And then once that's done, we are going to cd into Pocketsphinx and then do a .autogen.sh. And this is going to configure, our make file. And then once we have the make file, we're going to run make. And then once the make file is finished, we're going to do a sudo make install. And it's going to install it, and then we're going to try to do this, and it's going to fail. We're going to close our terminal, and we're going to reopen it, and we're going to run that sudo ldconfig command again. Check that. Yeah, sudo ldconfig. I'm not sure why that has to be run again, but it seems that it has to be. At least that's what got everything working for me. And then from within the Pocketsphinx directory, we're going to type Pocketsphinx under continuous, and it should come back and say error, no arguments given, blah, blah, blah. And that's fine. We don't care about that. At this point, we have a functional version of Pocketsphinx. Now, if you want to install Sphinx Train, go ahead and do it, but we don't really need that. Not for what we're trying to do here. So now, all right, so I don't know if you noticed over here, let me close this here. Pocketsphinx has been listening all along, and it keeps printing stuff out. And I call it Pocketsphinx because I don't think it's very good at what it does. However, it seems to recognize the word Julia just about every time I say it. So Julia, 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 right? It's pretty good at that. So if it can just recognize that one word, I'm pretty happy, because now I can use Pocketsphinx as my wake word. I'm going to stop this program here. And actually I could have could have stopped it differently. I could have said, Julia, stop listening.
Goodbye, sir. Powering off.
So the reason I did this, I wanted you to notice that all of a sudden, Google thinks I said all of this stuff, right? Before, it was just Pocketsphinx thinks this is what I said. Now, we're also getting information from Google back, okay? So let's take a look at this code here. And this is, let me make this bigger. This is the my command function. And we get our microphone ready, and we make our audio file. This is our audio file that we create. And then we try this. We say, let's try using Pocketsphinx for the wake word. And if this comes back okay, then we do this. If Julia in command well, let's look at this a little more closely. First of all, I'm noticing an error that I've made here that I'm going to have to correct. But here in the try block, we use Pocketsphinx for the wake word. We do command equals r.recognize under Sphinx audio.lower. So we're taking that audio file that we created up here when we listen to the microphone, and we're passing it to Pocketsphinx. Now, Pocketsphinx runs locally on my computer, and even though it's not a very good speech-to-text engine, in my opinion, it's good enough that it's going to recognize Julia most of the time. It's going to print out what Pocketsphinx thinks I said, and it's going to print out the command. So if I say, Julia, stop listening, for example, it should print out Pocketsphinx thinks you said, Julia, stop listening. If it has an error, it's going to do this. And now, down here, it's going to try this. It's going to say, if Julia in command, and we should wrap this in a try block. So, try colon. Now, all of this, Control V. Shift I, Tab, Escape. All right, so All right, I'm not sure I need that pass line there, but I don't think it could hurt. So this is better. I wrap this in a try block so that if I get an error here when I try to use Google, it'll print out down here that there was a problem with Google. This is very helpful, stuff like this, because this could tell me, for example, that the internet is out. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to guess why my program wasn't running properly. But I think you can see here that this first try block is the wake word, and if the wake word works, then we're going to try this. The question is, did I get this indentation correct? And I think I did. So let's see if this still works now. So let's make a commit message here. Wrapped the Google in a try block. And let's push it. These are, when you see me doing these commands like this, these are aliases. So, I've got a whole bunch of aliases in here to save me some typing while I'm using. So here's GCA, over here is git commit -v -a. So rather than typing all of this, I just type this, GCA. It just makes life a little easier. And all of these aliases they're from a plugin for my ZSH Z shell. I guess it's a plugin library. Anyway, let's not get too far off the track with this. Let's just do let's just start this up again. And let's give it a try. Julia Wright. Julia Wright. There we go. It moved the window to the right for me. So it's recognizing the Pocketsphinx is recognizing the wake word, and then it's passing the audio file off to Google, and Google is recognizing the command that I want, and the program is able to execute the action. So this is great because now I can run this program 24 hours a day, and it's not banging the Google speech-to-text engine in the cloud, so it's less likely that Google is going to cut me off, because Google allows you to use an hour a day of their time for free. And if you use 2 hours, they can start charging me. If I use 2 hours, they can start charging me for it, and I don't want to pay. So I'm guessing that this is okay. If I say, Julia, maximize. Julia, maximize. All right, so it maximized the window for me, the active window, and I don't know, maybe that took 6 seconds of Google's time. I don't know. I don't know how to look at. I guess I have to look at my account on Google to see how much time I'm using, and I can figure that out. But I think that a command like that probably only takes maybe 6 seconds. So that would mean every minute I can run. If I run 10 commands, that takes up a minute. And if I have an hour, I have 60 of those, which means I can run 600 commands a day. I doubt I'm ever going to run more than 100 or 200 commands a day. So this is great. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something from it, and I thank you very much, and goodbye.